Tuesday, January 16th, 2024, City Commission meeting, and we'll begin with roll call to establish a quorum.
Mayor Butler,
Here.
Commissioner Adamczyk,
Present.
Commissioner McCall,
Here.
Commissioner Opelt,
Here.
Commissioner Motta.
Here.
Mayor, we have 5 commissioners present. The quorum of 3 is met.
Okay, excellent. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next item on the agenda is commissioner comments. So we'll start down there, John.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to the Public Works guys and all the road crews have been out. I can't imagine it's an easy job, and there's still more work to do. We got more snow in the forecast, so thanks for all their hard work, and I hope they are duly compensated with maybe some extra time off or something.
Ditto. No other comment. Thank you.
I want to add, we had a couple of water main breaks, and the guys fixing water mains were out there working at -4, and I watched some of that up on Hudson Street, and really appreciate that effort, and I think they got everything repaired, but excellent work. Okay, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are those of a routine and housekeeping nature, or those items which have previously been reviewed by the City Commission and may be approved in one motion. A commissioner may request an item be removed for separate discussion and considered immediately following the consent agenda. Comment from the public related to any item on the consent agenda and to the City Commission is allowed. Each person will be limited to one speaking opportunity for up to 5 minutes for this section. Okay, commissioners, do you have any comments on the consent agenda? Okay, is there any public comment? Okay, seeing none, we can entertain a motion.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Adamczyk,
I agree. Approved.
Commissioner McCall,
Yes.
Commissioner Opelt,
Yes.
Commissioner Motta,
Yes.
Mayor Butler.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, next we'll move on to the general agenda, and comment from the public related to any item on the general agenda of the City Commission is allowed, and each person again will be limited to 5 minutes. Now, the first item on the general agenda is rezoning 501 East Poyntz from CC Community Commercial District to ICS Industrial Commercial Service District. Stephanie's got the ball.
Yeah, before we do that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Katie. She's going to walk through quasi-judicial decisions, which include rezoning, just kind of a brief overview before we get into our first rezoning.
Thank you, Stephanie. We were going to cover this last week, but got snowed in that week, but not today. We just didn't get snowed in today. The 3 things listed here we were going to cover, but I won't go into detail other than to say the City Commission has an adopted code of ethics with 5 principles, and these are 3 of the principles that are evoked in a quasi-judicial decision, which is what a rezoning decision is. The difference in this decision to other decisions that you make is that tonight you'll have a public presentation of specific facts. This is the evidence you'll get at the hearing. You have to apply those facts to specific law or factors, which Stephanie is going to review the specifics of a rezoning with you. And then you're going to render a decision that has limited applicability. So think of this more like a judicial decision. A judge is making a decision in a court of law that impacts the parties in the courtroom and doesn't always have broader impact. There's some other examples of the common quasi-judicial decisions that you will make in your tenure. A couple constitutional guideposts for you tonight, and when you have these in the future, is we do have to ensure due process. We want to make sure that it's fair, open, and impartial. A couple things here: if you have a conflict of interest on this rezoning or any of them, then you have to determine that you have that and recuse yourself. You have to make sure you're basing your decision on the evidence presented, and you can't be biased. don't prejudge any rezoning or any quasi-judicial decision, which means if you are asked in advance of the hearing your opinions on it, then you don't say, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that, because you haven't had the evidence yet. So you shouldn't know what you're going to decide yet. And you also shouldn't, of course, promise someone an outcome for the same reason. Here's some tips, and this is the last slide before I'll turn it over to Stephanie, but some important things. With quasi-judicial, probably the biggest reminder is, how would I want to be judged? If I were standing here before you as the applicant, wouldn't I want to be treated fairly and know what you were basing your decision on and impartially? So just the old rule of treat yourself like you'd treat others like you'd want to be treated. If you do have a conflict of interest on this or a future item, you do need to recuse yourself. We recommend that you don't meet with applicants outside of the public hearing. That's because it's really hard not to get evidence that you will base your decision on when you're having a side meeting, and also that information isn't available to the whole public to react to. And again, I've already talked about not previewing your outcome. Stephanie will go through with you about how to define a rezoning decision. And then the last note that pertains probably most to these types of decisions, if you have driven by a property or you've seen, a lot of times for a rezoning or a property-related decision, you're going to be familiar with the property. You might drive by, you might have been there. Just disclose that in the meeting. You can say, I drove by it. Sometimes you get unsolicited emails, and you can say, I have received several emails from neighbors concerned about this. So if you have, gathered that type of evidence, not talking about meeting with the applicant or any interested party, but those things, then just disclose that and let the community know that's part of what you base your decision on. And that is all I have. And Stephanie will get into the specifics of a rezoning unless you have any general questions. Okay, thank you.
And we'll have time to, at the end of this, if something in the rezoning kind of triggers a question, we can still go back and Katie can answer those for you. So Stephanie Peterson, Director of Community Development. The rezoning request we have before you this evening is at 501 East Poyntz Avenue. It's located in an area of town we generally refer to as the McCall Triangle. You can see the property outlined in red. And then taking a closer look at the site, this was the site of a hotel that burned down a couple of years ago. So it currently looks like the state in which this photo shows it. The request this evening is to rezone the property from community commercial to ICS, Industrial Commercial Services. The map that before you here is our existing zoning map, so you can see that parcel is currently zoned to community commercial, and then the surrounding properties are industrial and commercial in nature. Our future land use map, which is part of our comprehensive plan that was adopted back in 2015, it identifies the future use of this property as commercial. I would note that the ICS district is kind of a hybrid between industrial and commercial. So in this situation, staff is recommending, and the planning board as well, that ICS would be a suitable zoning district for this area. This did go before the planning board a couple of weeks ago. They recommended 5-0 that this be approved. There were no public comments at that meeting, and the board had very few comments for staff. I will draw your attention to the agenda item summary. In each agenda item summary that has a rezoning, there are 7 factors that are listed. These come directly from our MDC, the Manhattan Development Code. What the planning board and the commission are asked to do is to use these factors for making a decision. For instance, if in this instance the planning board recommended approval, if the commission or if a commissioner deviates from that recommendation and the adopted findings that the planning board made, then you should support your decision by referencing one of these 7 findings. That's all I have for you. That was a pretty quick overview, but happy to get into any more details either of the rezoning process or of this case specifically.
Stephanie, did the planning board have a quorum?
They did. They have 7 members total,
Okay.
so they did have a quorum.
Right. And what else could go in this kind of zoning? I mean, what other kinds of things?
An ICS, it is like not heavy manufacturing, but more like a light, like a business park could go there. I'd have to go and actually look at the table.
I just meant generally, yeah.
Yeah, I can pull that up real quick for you.
Well, just so it's basically not heavy manufacturing.
It is not. No, it allows for some outdoor storage, which wouldn't be allowed in a commercial district.
Okay.
It would allow for the sale of heavy machinery, but there wouldn't be like a meat packing plant or
That's
any
what-
sort of
yeah.
heavy industrial that could go there.
A tanning plant or something.
Yes,
Thank you.
no.
Do we know what the proposed use will be? Is that something that is presented to the planning board?
Historically, we did provide that information. We kind of have gone away from sharing that. If the applicant's here, they can certainly address that aspect. I would go back to Commissioner McCall. We try to focus on, and I failed to do this, I apologize, focus on what those general uses would be, because they could say that we're going to have outdoor sales, and then they could end up doing another use there. So we try to give just a preview, and I will add that into my, at least a link to those next time of what those proposed uses could be. And I can pull up a few out of the MDC. I don't have that table memorized. I know, I wish I did. You're welcome.
Is the applicant here?
I don't
Nope.
know.
Doesn't,
I don't think so.
don't appear to be. Okay. Any other comments from the commission? Are there any public comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comments.
I would state that the applicant is Manco, the window company.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion from the commission? Okay, then we can entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the recommendation of the Manhattan Urban Area Planning Board. Sorry, okay. I approve the first reading of an ordinance rezoning 2.6 acre tract of land generally located southwest of the intersection of East Poyntz Avenue, McCall Road, from CC, Community Commercial District, to ICS, Industrial Commercial Services District, based on the findings of the staff report and the recommendation by the Manhattan Area Planning Board.
I'll second the motion. So we have a motion and a second. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McCullough,
Yes.
Commissioner Opel,
Yes.
Commissioner Motta,
Yes.
Mayor Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Adamczyk.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, next item on the agenda is to consider the Manhattan Cemeteries Master Plan.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Now, I haven't met the majority of you now. So my name is Alfonso Leyva. I'm park planner with the City of Manhattan Parks and Recreation. One of the things I think I really want to share is a quote from a past commissioner, the late Mert Hanks Jr., the first African-American commissioner with the City of Manhattan. I read a book that one of the contacts that I've made in this position years ago, Lyndall Glasgow, gave me a book, and it had a quote of his, and I think this applies, as me as a person, but then, in my career as well. He says, "The sense of duty that we have to one another is greater than any political faction or segment. Our duty can be realized by services that are in the best interest of the total community." The flip side of that, I have our values as Parks and Recreation, and also our mission, because Aaron will quiz randomly. No, I just wanted to share that because there was a lot of input from the community. And it was great interacting with those members. Anyone from the Manhattan Riley County Preservation Alliance and the Landmark Water Tower neighborhood as well, and just other members of the community. Because what we heard in that in that engagement. Something that was recommended last year from the City Commission was to really get that input, as there's a lot of support and interest in what we do at the cemeteries here in the community. So to start, as a quick little agenda, we're going to go over the community engagement, the cemetery concepts, the master plan cost estimate, and then we'll finish with any questions and next steps. So the process, well, this all started 2 years ago, well, a year and a couple months ago. Back in November of 22, we came to that City Commission to see if there was any desire to update the master plan. Well, more like begin a master plan, because there's never been a master plan with our cemeteries. So this would be the first. We did this because it aligns with one of our city goals in our 5-year strategic plan, and that is goal number 1, which is a well-run city organization, to update facilities and provide the items that our employees need. So what we heard back then was there was support with it, and one of the items that we heard was to make sure that we provided an outreach for the not only our advisory boards but also some of the community members in that area around Sunset and Sunrise cemeteries, and we did. Pretty much after that work session, we engaged the cemetery board. Kind of went, that first meeting was more about getting information as far as what we heard from the commission. Kind of talked about, looked at a plan and kind of circled some areas. We didn't have anything quite detailed by January, but we did use that first month to kind of get some information, not only from some of the advisory boards like Cemetery Board and the Historic Resources Board, but also the neighborhood around the cemetery sexton's house. And then we also engaged Park Board, because one of the options that we did discuss about was potentially putting the new maintenance shop within Girl Scout Park there on the north side of Sunset Cemetery. Pretty quickly we got feedback that wasn't something we wanted to consider. So we only went to Park Board one other time in July to kind of give them an update. We were going to give them an update last week, but we did cancel due to the weather. But we were going to take the master plan that was accepted by the cemetery board. We were going to present that information to Park Board then. But so besides Park Board, the other advisory boards, Historic Resources Board, Cemetery Board, we also try to get the community. In the Manhattan Mercury, we did an advertisement to do an open house up at the zoo. We did some K-Man radio advertisements, we did host an open house on March 9th. We had about a dozen people show up. It was some of the same people that we had engaged in January. There was one or two new folks, but one of the items that I did forget to elaborate a little bit more on is that neighborhood tour. That's where we had the most engagement, really. That was at the end of January, and we had well over 24, 25 people show up from the neighborhood. Not only from the neighborhood, but also from the members from the Manhattan Riley County Preservation Alliance. They were involved as well. They were in there taking pictures, and the cemetery sexton, Mike Moeller, and I were there, and we listened to the feedback. Some of their concerns about potentially, they didn't want to see the cemetery sexton's house destroyed, and that's really not our intention. It is on the it could be on the National Register. It is recommended, but that is some of the items that we heard at that time. As we went forward, we got more information, got feedback, went back to the cemetery board there in April. At that point, we did have a couple options that we went through with them. There was some concerns about potentially increasing the how much vehicles would be in Sunset Cemetery if we did place a maintenance shop further on the west side inside Sunset Cemetery. Not a whole lot of feedback on Sunrise, and after this we'll look at some plans and get into that a little bit more. And then we did a city commission work session update this summer. That's around, we talked about the Sexton's house at that point. What that commission was comfortable with doing with the Sexton's house and the maintenance lot property as well. And then what we heard there was to expand and do a little bit of a feasibility study as far as what we wanted to do at Sunset. What option, because there are 4 different options, and I'll talk a little bit more, expand on that a little bit more here in a bit. And then that's where we took that time to engage a consultant and a general contractor, got them involved. They took a couple months to work through some of those plans, and then that's when we went back to the cemetery board there in November. And they recommended the acceptance of this master plan that was in your packets. So just some context, Sunrise Cemetery over here on the west side of town. There's the call there. North is to your right. K-18 here on the north side. Sunrise is out in Riley County. It is not within city limits. Most of that property is still undeveloped. There is only a section of that has been plotted, and even half of those have been sold. Right now there's, Sunrise, 12,000 spaces plotted and ready to be sold. About half of those have been sold, and there is a perpetual fund out at Sunrise. So perpetual fund, essentially I believe it's 25% of the sale of each lot goes to a perpetual fund that is then used for any enhancements at the cemetery. The last one enhancement that we did was back in 2018, and that was expansion of the road here on that east side where some of that natural burial is located. That was a little over $200,000 for that expansion. So again, that perpetual fund, there is a perpetual fund at Sunrise, but there is not currently one at Sunset Cemetery. So jumping right into the proposed plan, we did not get a whole lot of feedback for Sunrise. The other consideration for the maintenance lot and the office was a little bit further into the cemetery. Rather than once you come in here from the northeast, rather than just seeing right there where the office and the maintenance lot is, there was some consideration to push it back further. However, the big consideration there is that that's well over 1,000 feet, and we'd have to get utilities out there further, so adding more expense. So when we took this to the various boards, city commission, the cemetery board, we heard that they'd like to keep it where it is, but is there a way that we could visually screen that maintenance shop area? And that's definitely something that we could do with vegetation. We're also proposing that currently that office sits here where that new shop is proposed, and we take it down about 100 feet further down that hill to be more accessible. Currently, that office is not ADA accessible. There is some parking over on this southeast side, and there is it's on gravel, and there is a sidewalk to get to there, but full ADA compliant, that structure is not. And that was one of the things that we wanted to see here. Make sure that all of our residents, our citizens, were able to access the office. Not only that, in the master plan, as we were going through this, how much burial plots are there out there at Sunrise? There's well over 200 years worth of burial plots out there at Sunrise. So the future for the cemeteries is definitely at Sunrise, and that's where, with that in mind, that's where a bulk of the proposed expansions would be, as far as a new shop, a new 40 by 80 shop. and then a remodeled shop. This is where the current one is existing, but this was something that was built back in the 60s, I believe, and those doors are no longer, they're, for the equipment that we have nowadays, it's hard to get some of our equipment in there. So with what we have proposed here in the master plan, we would be able to pretty much cover all of our equipment there at the cemetery. Other than that, there was some consideration of future columbariums. Right now, there's existing columbariums over here on the east side by the existing natural burial. We would be able to expand that once we get that area filled, and then there'd be some additional future columbariums over on this other side as well. A couple of years ago, I think this would have been 2019 or so, I think, is when the cemetery board adopted the natural burial. So natural burial is what it sounds. It's you're pretty much you dig a hole. You have the body in a shroud. Nothing, maybe some oils or whatnot, but not your typical casket and any concrete in that area. I believe there's a handful of natural burial plots that have been sold, but not many yet. And if that need arises, we have that space to expand further. For the Sunset Cemetery, a little bit of context here. North is up. Here is the high school. The zoo is to the south. There's that big hill down into Wildcat Creek. The Girl Scout Park, and then the other properties, the existing maintenance lot, along with the cemetery sexton's house in the area with some of the neighborhoods there as well, and Redwood across the Wildcat Creek. So like I said, during this process, we started with 2 different scenarios, went into 4. Ultimately, what we heard back from the boards, city commission, and the public was scenario 2, and internally as well. What would work best, and that would be a joint maintenance facility between the cemetery crew and zoo crew. This option here, this is the one that we got a little bit of pushback, not a whole lot. The concern there was about increasing any kind of transportation from staff getting to and from that area. This was scenario 3 when I mentioned that we took to Park Board when we considered potentially putting it in Girl Scout Park. I talked with Public Works as well to see if that was feasible, because there are some water elements for the water tower and such in that area. And then something that came up in conversation with Cemetery Board, what about if we keep it where it is now? What are those options? So we dug into that, engaged our Public Works and our community development, make sure that we were following our own rules with the Manhattan Development Code. If we were to keep that existing maintenance lot, we would have to and redevelop. I mean, putting in a maintenance shop there, we would have to take off those two access points onto Sunset, because this is a major collector. And then that would mean we would access that street to the north. And there was some concern and pushback from the neighborhood at that point, because that is quite a narrow road, and there was some concern there from the group. So scenario 2, expanding on that, since that's the one that was recommended in the master plan and was recommended from the cemetery board for acceptance. So essentially this is what it looks like now. It's over here on the southwest side of Sunset Cemetery, northwest side of the zoo. Currently, let's see, here we go. This is probably a better picture. Whoop, went too far. Some of the existing elements on the zoo side, the pole barn, the maintenance shop and storage, quarantine facility, and then a commissary facility as well. So these were some of the structures that would stay with this proposal. Some of the items that would be replaced with a joint maintenance facility would be the storage sheds and pole barns area here. And we're actually, Scott and I and a couple other zoo staff were in a meeting today with our consultant as we're expanding on that master plan for the Americas and Africas, looking at potentially putting in a giraffe exhibit in this area. So that would take out those storage facilities and pole barns there. So with that, this is something that we took, we brought on a consultant. We engaged with them to see what, as far as cost of building a 30 by 80 shop with two 20-foot bays on each end. We looked at different scenarios. Could we access a different route rather than the existing? This is a pretty steep slope. That was not as feasible. But we talked about AZA rules to make sure that we were compliant there. But we felt that during this process, a joint maintenance facility like this would be highly beneficial. Some of those items that would be beneficial would be, of course, modernizing aging facilities. There was also some stormwater concerns in this area that would get cleaned up, enhanced resource sharing, improved safety and training facilities, and space optimization. As we expand at the zoo, as they raise private funds for donations for some of the items that we're exploring in this next phase. There will be some need for additional storage and maintenance area as well. And these are some of the structures that are to be removed. Some of the pole barn areas, they keep some equipment inside. But these are the ones that I had circled in red would be removed with the construction of that new maintenance lot there. The new maintenance shop there with the zoo and the cemetery. So here's the sticker shock. The preliminary cost estimate, like I said, we engaged a consultant, got feedback on what it would take for a new office, for the shops. This number includes FF&E, so that's your fixtures, furnishings, and equipment, and design. We kind of took these. The first one is Sunrise Cemetery, and then Sunset. Didn't include the expansion for the roads in Sunrise. That is, we have 200 years worth of burial out there. I don't think in our lifetime will we see when the roads over at the far south side will be constructed. So those weren't included here. We did include those with Sunset because everything's been built out at Sunset. And the last time that road was mill and overlaid was back in the 90s. And it is in need of repair now. So that's something that we have here in the preliminary cost estimate as well. So with that, I am open to any questions, discussion, and general feedback from the master plan.
I was trying to remember, because we debated this all at some prior meetings and went over all these options and took a look, and I kind of recall every option had a problem with it that we were trying to get passed. And what was it for this one that's chosen? I was thinking it was maybe the cost of the roads or something. For this one, it was the access. The question was, so our staff would be able to access the maintenance shop through the zoo. We did talk about, would that be some sort of AZA conflict? It would not be. As long as we had the fencing to where there is like a true delineation for their AZA requirements, and with automatic gates and such, I think we're proposing either 3 or 4 automatic gates in this area. That wouldn't be an issue.
when we were looking at potentially doing its own drive, when we had the consultant, it's so steep there that I mean, that bottom line, that price was going to be pretty big. But this was the one that got the least amount of resistance in engaging the other advisory boards.
Yeah, I like this one the best, but I just can't remember, everything had a problem. Thanks.
What's happening to the house on Sunset, where we,
So that was the conversation that we had back in June with the previous commission. What we heard was, could we sell it? There is some deed restriction there about that when it was deeded to the city, that house was supposed to be the house of the cemetery sexton forever. It had there in the deed. And well, the funny thing is that forever was written in, everything was typed, but so there would be a process if we wanted to go down that route of selling it. I believe it's the quit deed title process that could potentially take a couple years to do, and that's kind of the majority feedback what we heard this past summer, is that most of the commissioners at that time were fine with the selling of both of those properties. That maintenance lot, there is no deed restriction, but the cemetery sexton's house does have one, and so we would have to go through the process to get that sold.
so all of administration would be at Sunrise?
That's where it is now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's nothing in that house now, or what?
So that's where Mike used to live until 2018. There is an office at the existing shop here now. Maybe this is a little bit better. There's that shop now. There is an office there, but for the most part, I believe everything is at Sunrise now.
Okay, thank you.
What's the timeline that you are looking for these things to be constructed, and what's your priorities as far as which one should we do first?
That's kind of what we're here. What is the commission comfortable with at this point? I think that's one of the things we'd like to discuss this evening. And looking at the total there, you're looking anywhere from 8 to 9 million. That's a lot to bite off. However, in conversations with city manager's office, with the debt service and some of the debt that's coming off over the next couple of years, could we tackle all of these projects over the next year or two, and debt service that with the bond and interest over the next 10 years? Payments wouldn't start for 4 years. That was one of the options we discussed. Is there a way to phase it? Yes, but as we've learned over the last couple of years, holding off on a part of a project to phase it in later, it's going to cost double. But that's one of the things we want to discuss this evening is how comfortable is this elected body in pursuing all of those items within the next couple of years.
I think to address that, I'd like to see the schedule, and we've got a capital improvement program, what debt's coming off, what the payments would be, how would it affect the budget, because we've got the fire station stuff on here later, which is a whole bunch of money too. So really, for both of those type of things, really for the whole reviews to see, what would that mean as far as what's being retired, what's coming in, what the payments would be, what would that do to the budget? Because it's kind of hard to talk about just in the abstract, looking at the number.
I would echo John, especially with interest rates where they are, and I know it'll be in temporary notes for a while, but still, interest rates are way high, and hopefully will come down pretty significantly in the next couple of years. I do think that we could, as a commission, accept this plan and work on it. I think there is sticker shock. I would like to see if we couldn't do it a little less expensively. I've talked to a couple people in construction, and they felt that 8 to 9 million was pretty high. So, that's where I'm coming in.
And my thoughts on it, I think we should right away go through the process of figuring out how to unravel the encumbrances on the sexton's house. Because we talked about that in great detail, and there was a bunch of things that need to be done, and if that's gonna be a 2-year process, that needs to be priority one, get that thing straight so that we can, if we decide to sell it, fine, if we decide to repurpose it, fine, but we've gotta get that so it's not encumbered, so we can do something with it. And then my second thought is, and I agree with everybody on the sticker shock, but if I was gonna prioritize that, I would do the Sunrise Cemetery portion first, simply because that's where the burials are taking place now. And that's where our guys are working the most in operations, so I'd like to see us, prioritize that. And we may have to, the Sunset one, wait until we can decipher what to do with that sexton's house. And maybe if we do manage to sell that property, it could help offset some of the cost of this.
Yeah, and we looked at some of that, what those numbers would be. Compared to this, the 8 to 9 million, it is a little bit of a drop in the bucket. But yeah, definitely it's something that if we feel, if this governing body feels that we could go forward with, we definitely start that process.
I would echo what my fellow commissioners have just said regarding what are the other implications. Could we see this in more detail vis-a-vis the budget and the other budget activities? I also have just a small logistical question regarding Sunrise Cemetery. We have a growing Muslim population in Manhattan. Have provisions been made for burials that would conform to their religious beliefs?
So one of the things we talked about, we heard the same thing. It's something that came up during our engagement. I believe this is K.A. I can't remember which lot this was, but yeah, this is one of the areas it's pretty much ready to get plotted whenever. But we did look at what those requirements be, and those burials, as long as they're in a northeast position, they comply with their religious beliefs. So internally, we talked about that, and that law could potentially be somewhere where we could address some of those. Yeah.
Okay. Just as long as we've got you here.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Is there any chance of getting the bell tower to ring again? I know that there was the one individual who was unhappy about it, but surely we could have it we raised a lot of money to, fix it up, and maybe at 5 o'clock we could just have a couple dings or what?
It's supposed to ring every night. The bell tower's scheduled to ring every night at 6.
So it still is doing?
It is, as far as I know.
Okay, thank you. Good to know, because I've had people ask me that. Second,
It's not as loud as it could be,
Oh.
but we have to be.
no, we don't. I'm sorry, but we, the majority does rule, and the majority really would like to hear that a little more often, and especially since, we put tens of thousands of dollars into it, so.
That will have to be, that'll have to be taken up with the
Okay,
foundation.
thank you, yeah. Second, the green burials, someone asked me if, can you mark, those are marked, right?
Yes, the green barrels are marked out. We've sold 5 spaces there.
Uh-huh,
We've had 1 cremation barrel in that section.
okay, great.
There's no headstones.
We do not allow head or markers of any type there.
But there's
Just our own
nothing,
markers.
no,
We have markers every other.
Yes, the grave markers are there,
okay,
but we don't allow individual
Yeah.
markers of who's buried there.
yeah, okay. So the second thing I wondered, would it be a good idea to have a kiosk where people could just kind of, because I know that we really mapped out Sunset and where everybody was buried and how one guy's leg was buried away from him.
There is a kiosk.
Yeah, there is a kiosk?
It's a information booth that
Uh-huh.
is kept
Okay.
up yearly. We add to it yearly, and monthly it can be there. And of course, we have our online grave locator, which it coincides with that.
Sure, thank you. Get that bell ringing.
Commission, if I may, kudos to Alfonso in going through this process. We didn't want to make any assumptions with our cemeteries. And I appreciate Alfonso walking through the public process, the engagement, the options. These cost estimates include a lot more than just the facilities. We have infrastructure needs within our cemeteries, including streets and water lines. We would really like to go to the next step and get a firm involved that can look at both of these sites and provide us and you greater detail about the cemeteries. These master planning efforts, again, we didn't want to make assumptions. We didn't just want to go directly to a product. We wanted to go through a process, get input and feedback, and Alfonso's done a great job. If we could go to a construction manager at risk process, get an architect and engineering firm on board, develop some 30% design plans, I think we can bring back options and we can look at financing in that regard. If you're okay with that, we'll generate that RFP and bring it back for you all to consider. If you need more explanation as to what I'm describing, I'm happy to elaborate on that. Our construction manager at risk process will engage with that architect and engineer up front, generate 30% design plans. You like what you see, you want us to move forward, we can go out then and hire the contractor. They'll work together to finalize those plans and present you all with a guaranteed maximum price on that project. Alfonso's done a great job. Those are his estimates. It's really to get the conversation going. In order for us to make clear decisions, that next step is really getting those professionals in the room with us.
I think that's a good idea. That'll answer most of our questions that we had on the details, so that's a winner.
Yep.
Can we move on? Public comment, is there any public comment? Anybody wants to present tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll come back to the commissioners. Any other commissioner comments on the plan?
I just had one thought. If we're talking about prioritizing things, with the Sunset project, that does kind of take care of two problems at once. Since a lot of those facilities out at the zoo are probably going to need to be replaced, sooner than later. And so if we can kind of combine those efforts, I think that might be something to think about as well. So.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, then I'll go ahead and make the motion that we accept and approve the Manhattan Cemeteries Master Plan dated January 2024 as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Opelt,
Yes.
Commissioner Motta,
Yes.
Commissioner Adamchak,
Yes.
Commissioner McCall.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, we'll move on to the third item on the general agenda, which is a discussion item, and that's the lease and draft interlocal agreement with Kansas State University regarding the headquarters fire station, along with proposed improvements at the fire station headquarters and master planning for the new training area at the Amherst Avenue site.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. I want to bring your attention just directly to the interlocal agreement itself. Katie did an excellent job here in legal staff walking you through in the whereases all the history associated with our leases and annexations and agreements with the university. We highlight in the memo there's an existing 1994 agreement, but as you can see in the whereases, we started in the 80s with these original leases. We had an annexation process that took place in the 90s, which we then updated these agreements. And you can see she walks through a lot of the original thoughts and provisions, and then the ordinances that followed once 1994 took place and we annexed the university's campus into the community. We have been working with university admin for several years. The original 1983 lease, and then obviously the updated in 1994 interlocal agreements, they're vague. And they were in place and they're supposed to expire in 2034, I believe. So we have a few more years on that, but the way those things were structured, some of them there's handwritten notes on some of these leases. Typewriters were used, and it can get very confusing with multiple copies just as to what everything is addressing. We have been meeting with administration at K-State and have taken a lot of this to the commission in the past, and it's led to some things that have happened prior. We acquired property off Amherst Avenue to consider the relocation of our training ground at the fire station. We made that purchase. We are in the process of looking at just how everything would possibly fit on that site. Scott's going to run through some of those concepts. Acknowledgement by the city, the fire station headquarters at 2000 Dennison's on one of the premier intersections in the community, just directly across the street from the Foundation's office park, as well as MBAF, just to the south. So questions and speculation were any of this property desired for alternative uses. We explored that, and there was an acknowledgement that the training area could be used for a different purpose, but the fire station headquarters was necessary. It's necessary to serve all the campus, and it's necessary to serve a pretty good portion of the northeast part of our community. So if we started looking at an agreement. We started looking at ways to structure this. The university has to take these types of agreements to the Board of Regents, and then we'll turn around and approach the Attorney General's office. So tonight, there's really no action. It's to make sure you're comfortable with where we're at with the agreement. If you are, the university would then approach the Board of Regents. If they get through that process, then we would turn around and submit something jointly through the Attorney General's office, more than likely. Kind of depends what the Board of Regents says. If we have things we need to change, we'll obviously bring those back to you all. And then if it gets through the process, we'll have those documents for you to execute at a later date. The big provisions we just wanted to highlight, and I'll have Scott run through kind of the site plans, terminating the original lease and replacing it, modifying the boundaries of that lease. We acknowledge there's an area north of the fire station headquarters that we use for training. We've acknowledged moving that and returning that space back to K-State. And then acknowledging that we are on university property. Headquarters and the improvements that we've made are located there. They've allowed us to basically be there rent-free, lease-free, and we provide service to the university. Previously, we had acknowledged a payment in documents and past agreements. The practice became part of the city university fund, recognizing the sales tax that are generated on campus. We separate those and treat those differently. Before we transfer those into the city university fund, we were acknowledging about a $225,000 payment in the general fund from those revenue streams. This agreement contemplates taking that out of the process, so that $225,000 would transfer over to the city university fund and not be kept as a acknowledgement of payment for those services. There is a little bit of history in the memo about that. We feel like in our negotiations and with the long-term lease going through 2075 for the headquarters, we're in a position to maintain service to the campus at in exchange for the use of that property. We previewed the prior commission on those terms. Obviously, we have 3 new members. If any of these provisions are not acceptable or you'd like us to renegotiate those, we would need additional time to do that. But any input and feedback you have for us this evening would be welcomed on those items. I'll look to Scott now to run through those site changes and improvements that we anticipate. And Katie and I and Scott would also be available for questions. I know Ethan Erickson's here with K-State as well. He can provide a timeline update going to KBOR and the Attorney General's office too. So, Scott.
Good evening.
I think I've met with the 3 new commissioners. You've all been on the site, so you have an idea of what we're talking about.
but I did want to run through real quickly and just give another overview of the site we're talking about. So this is 2000 Denison. To your right is north, if you want to look at it that way. This is the overall site. This was built in 1985. For the first 10 years, it was used as the headquarters fire station, the admin, and Firehouse 1 was housed out of here. And then the original concept of this entire structure was about being a regional training center. In the mid-90s, so 96, risk reduction was part of community development, moved into headquarters, and the area that was designed for the training for regional fire school was converted into office space. So that's the way it sits today. This is a picture taken last week. Sorry, probably should have gotten one without the snow, but that's not. This with the edge development and all the construction on Kimball and Denison. One of the things that's going on is moving the 24-inch water line. And so what you can see, I don't think there's a, yeah. So this is our apron to our truck, to where the fire trucks are housed. Currently, the only way to get into any part of this property is to drive into our apron. Public Works and the contractor created a road right here that goes into through that parking lot to allow everybody in and out. The main reason I tell you this is as there's a lot of construction going on there right now. So it is a good time if we're going to do additional construction. It might work out well. As they're doing this road here on Denison, I know it's coming down. They're going to have to put a stub wall in here. So if we can somehow dovetail some of this stuff, parking lots, things of that nature, it may help prevent building and rebuilding. And I know nobody likes to watch new concrete being poured and then tore back out and repoured again. So that's the reason I really wanted to put that slide in there, just to give you this drive up here eventually with all the construction, this being the largest intersection of the city. This drive will be going away, so we'll no longer have access out of here. So everything will be coming through here, and then eventually this road will come back right in here. The new lease talks about this 2.54 acres. The training ground that we currently have would go away. So one of the things we talked about is this is the area that we will have to relocate over onto the Amherst site. So you can see here we've got a 40 by 60 shed that will have to be moved. Our burn building structure is over here. It's a 3-story structure. Our 5-story concrete tower is right here. And then Public Works has a salt shed up here to the north. All of these things will have to be removed off of the site as part of the lease. This is the ground on Amherst that we talked about, that we purchased back in February of 2023. This was purchased for $850,000 at the time. This is our Firehouse 3. Like I said, this is Amherst Avenue. This is the linear trail that runs right down along the side of it. So what we plan to do is take this road, continue it, and eventually this will come into here, and this will feed into the training ground back in here. If you have any questions at any time, please feel free to interrupt me. Here's just another hashing of taking the new purchase land, what we currently have, and combining them together. That's a little over 9 acre piece of ground. The current training ground that we are going to be returning back to the university is 2.5 acres. The whole site at 2000 Denison is roughly around 5 acres total. So this was originally designed in the event there was a decision to actually relocate our station. This was actually a feasible location that could do all of it. This is just another picture of that. And this is a concept that former Public Works Director Rob Ott and I put together. So this is not, he's a professional. I can't say that I'm very professional with this. So what we kind of did here is a concept of what we think this place could look like when it's built out. And this is the 9 acres. Here's that shed that was in the previous picture here. So just to give you some bearings, here's that 40 by 60 shed that we currently have on the Firehouse 3 grounds. So basically, we come in here, we'd create a new training concept that would be more about building roads, having the ability for driver training, more realistic style of what we see on a fire ground rather than a big concrete pad and just laying out hose and not having any obstruction. So it's an opportunity to advance our training capabilities and what we provide to our firefighters with a new full layout. The purple structures are what we're talking about, really focusing in on the initial build out of the training ground. With the idea of in the future, we could build a much larger training facility that would be more classroom based, possibly partnering with RCPD or Riley County EMS or other regional partners on creating a nice usable training facility in the future. Really what we're after is replacing a storage area, replacing some of our concrete, making sure we have a training tower, making sure we have a burn facility, making sure we have the ability to do extrication training, hazardous materials training. That's what our main function is. So our goal is to take this basic concept. We'll have a committee of firefighters that are going around looking at different newly updated training grounds that are around not only the state, but into Oklahoma and Missouri, and seeing some different concepts that are out there. And that's, so it'll kind of lead into the next phase that we're talking about, which is getting some better estimates, because these are our estimates. But you're looking at a new training ground facility in the neighborhood of $5 million to transfer what we currently have and to build back what we have with a little bit of more improvements, but basically what we currently have and relocating it here in the $5 million range. One of the things with the lease that we're looking at is making some exterior and interior improvements if we do decide to go with the lease. The building's been a great building for over 40 years. It's got great bones, but like all things, it is in need of repair or soon to be some needs that need to be improved. I talked about the concrete. The concrete throughout the facility is deteriorating. Our HVAC system up on the roofs are reaching end of life. The roof itself is reaching end of life. So there are multiple CIP projects that we currently have in the system that are going to need to be done, whether we update this lease or not. They're going to have to be done at some point. So it makes good sense to do all at once if we can. One of the other things that we need to look at improving on the firehouse side is we have a communal shower over there still. It's our last station that still has, well, Firehouse 2 still does, but it's a much smaller station. But it's got a communal shower for the operations staff, so you have one shower for everybody to utilize. It's I think everybody understands what that I'm talking about there. And so looking at if there are different options and things we can do to make small remodels to make those more individualized. Also in the risk reduction area, wanting to put a storefront look onto the risk reduction area here. Right now it's really just a door on the side and that's it. Being able to actually push this out and make it look more like an office space, especially if we're going to have K-State and other commercial buildings facing the north. It makes good sense to have a nice accessible entry for the public to enter in. The main entrance into the Denison building right now is not ADA compliant, so one of the things we would like to do is redo the glass front on that and make some changes there. This whole concept with BBN was designed to provide us, as we're going through the lease with K-State, an opportunity to really, through the negotiations, they want to see some improvements on our building. They've put a lot of money in along Kimball Avenue. They've got buildings that are 2025, have a look to them. Ours is a 1980 look. They would like to see some of the things we're going to do on that corner to help make the entire Edge District pleasing. And so these are some small modifications that I think we can do. I say small, they're expensive, but they're small exterior modifications that can be done and are likely really needed. A lot of them are needing to be done anyway. So getting to do it all at once there again makes sense to me. But some of these improvements, like I said, one of the other features they would like to see is adding some glass panels on the south side of the building, which would allow people to look into the fire station. Rather than right now, we've got the old block glass, and it's up at the top edge of the building, so it's not very aesthetically pleasing. And having an opportunity to help invite people into the fire station would be a concept that could be looked at doing. None of these are have to happen. These are just design features that we've worked with BBN to get that process started. I think Jason and Wyatt may want to step in on how we want to approach it moving forward. But really, with this building, we're looking at another roughly $5 million to upgrade this building, give it another 50 years of life. Just to give you some comparison, Raleigh County EMS is currently in the process of building a new EMS headquarters. It's less than 25,000 square foot, and it's over roughly $14 million. This is well over 35,000 square foot of space that we currently have. So a $5 million upgrade is, I think, money well spent to give us another 40 years out of this building. You have any questions for me?
Yeah. So, what would you say the life? What kind of life left do we have in the existing training facility, or is it something that we would have to replace in the next 10 years? Or
yeah. So our concrete tower, for example, which was the original structure that was put on the property, we are seeing a lot of decay in the concrete. To be honest, similar to what has happened at Royal Towers. If you're seeing now the balconies are starting to deteriorate, that's what's happening on our staircases that go up the outside. We've had to go in and replace some of the metal handrails to modify them, but we're starting to see the spalling and such of that sidewalk. Or the staircase that goes up 5-story. So I don't think that's got a lot more life left in it, to be real honest. We typically don't use it for much anymore. It's an outdated, antiquated tower in today's. Our burn building was put in over 15 years ago. We had an engineer come out and take a look at it. That's our three-story structure that we're using for repelling. It has a lot of extra newer features in it. We talked to them about actually relocating it, and based on the engineer that came out and looked at it, to redo it and to get it back into the shape it should be in is not worth the money, and going out and purchasing a new training tower is recommended by that engineer. Now, the engineer is from one of these facility companies that build these, so
yeah,
I mean,
sure.
We do understand that as well.
So, do you think we're really losing much by giving up? I mean, I don't know, we don't probably have a lot of options, but by K-State reclaiming this particular tract of property, do you think, are we losing a lot, or is it stuff that's going to need to be replaced anyways?
I think there's two ways to look at it. I think there's an opportunity by going away from just a concrete pad and designing and building something that fits today's firefighters and what we're training for. I don't think we're losing out on that. Being located next to the headquarters administration and just the convenience of having training all there, and we're going to lose that, but it's not from a training perspective. It's from an interaction. We're going to have to learn how to interact with our firefighters and get out more often with them. The only other is we will lose some of the capacity for meeting space. Within that current building, we've got a 250 person occupancy, large assembly room, and then we've got 130 occupancy lecture hall, where parking could become an issue. But I know that one of the things we're working out within the lease is to possibly leave the concrete in place, so we still get to continue to use that. we've got a good working relationship with the foundation currently, that if we need overflow, they work with us, and vice versa, if they've got something going on there. So I guess, in a sense, the biggest thing we're going to lose as a fire department is a parking lot, in my mind. If we're able to move and be able to put what we've got relocated in, I don't see it.
But I think that is an issue because a lot of meetings happen in that building. And you're not going to have any parking unless the university is willing to let you use that concrete or something, because there's no way that the parking you have around the building is adequate for all kinds of meetings that go on there.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I know that we have been working with the K.S.A. team on being able to utilize that. The foundation has been very supportive of keeping that there because, like I said, there's an opportunity for them to utilize that for overflow as well. So I think within the agreement, the parking lot will be able to stay unless they obviously sell it, and it's being construction on it.
Yeah.
We are trying to, as we go to replace the concrete, we're going to try to maximize the parking stalls that we do have available, and would have to do some things different instead of maybe having our vehicles in the lot. If we know there's going to be a public event, that's what maybe gets moved around when somebody can utilize actually all the parking around the building. But there's definitely going to be a loss of parking stalls if we lose that concrete or the ability to utilize that concrete.
So could I just ask you to go over the money again? So we were taking $225,000 from the sales tax that was supposed to be City University to pay the fire department?
We were acknowledging a reference in a prior agreement of something of a payment. Katie, you might be able to help me. Was it in the $25,000 range that was supposed to escalate over time? And this was a payment that over time got reflected more back into the City University Fund. Now, this payment was something that the university and the city had acknowledged would take place, but then the City University Fund started taking place mainly because of administrative discussions and commission concurrence with the way we handled that payment.
So originally, it didn't come from the City University Fund, though. It came from the university. They were paying $225,000.
Not 225. The original, it was much lower than that,
Okay.
but it escalated over time. The City University Fund is a complex fund.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of joint projects in the past. We've done initiatives that were led by the city, initiatives led by the university.
And could I just say, I'd like to see that board sort of be rekindled.
Yeah.
Because I do feel that we've just sort of stolen for concrete things that might have been of mutual support to both the city and the university. So basically, the city was paying us for the fire department and
The-
fire use, and then
The
they
city
started
was-
just taking it out of the City University Fund.
Jason,
Go ahead.
I could go ahead and try and describe it from the City University Fund standpoint. So annually, we're putting in money to that City University Fund. The two biggest contributors are franchise fees that are generated on campus,
Sure.
as well as sales taxes
Yeah.
generated on campus. The franchise fees is a little easier. That's just a direct payment into the fund. So I'm just going to use an example of 2016, $460,000 in franchise fees are generated. That money comes to the city. We put it into the fund. $320,000 in sales taxes were generated on campus. We take that number, and then we take the estimate of what we consider that fire services contract, the fire services that we're providing to the university. In 2016, that estimate was $172,000, because annually we're making an estimate, and it increases a little bit each year based on inflation and things like that. So we take that $322,000 in sales tax, because that money comes directly from the state to our general fund. So we take that $322,000 and we subtract the fire services contract of $172,000.
But originally, we didn't do that. Originally, when we annexed the university, and the City University Fund was was franchise and sales tax. We weren't taking any money out of that to pay for to have the university pay for fire. So that's all I'm trying to establish.
Yeah, and so prior to the annexation, when the fire station was originally built in the 80s,
Uh-huh.
part of that agreement was the city, the university was paying for fire services.
Which I think is not a bad idea, quite
Right.
frankly.
And so
But now
that
they're
was
paying out of sort
the
of,
goal there after annexation, which we would be obligated to provide the services
Mm-hmm.
after, was to try to keep the city whole from that original fire services contract. That's the whole principle behind reducing the transfer to City University, which came later, in keeping the fire service and the general fund somewhat whole.
I just think we need to make sure we understand the history and what's evolved, so to speak, and the sort of whittling away at the City University Fund, which was used for a number of significant safety factors and positive things for both the city and the university.
I agree with you,
Yeah.
and even though we've dedicated a big chunk of it to the North Campus Corridor, we're also doing the improvements right now on North Manhattan Avenue, which is
Sure.
a improvement with the bike lanes and the wider streetscape and the pedestrian crossings there.
We've done a lot of positive things with it.
There are,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But I just kind of want to make sure that people understand that originally we were being paid to provide fire.
And to me, that did make sense to do that because the university, most of their buildings, well, the university buildings don't pay property tax.
Nope.
And, that's how we're funding fire and police. And so it seems fair, that formula that the city staff was using. Makes sense to me.
And of course, if the university builds on the land that is the tower and that kind of thing, they won't be paying any property taxes unless it's a business.
It'll depend on the use.
Yes.
Right now, some of the office park buildings are on the tax rolls.
Some of them are,
Yep.
but some of them aren't.
Scott, I had a question about whether the training, I can't recall if we talked about this when we met, is the training facility used by fire companies outside of Manhattan? Are you providing are you a regional training center?
Yeah, I would, locally, yes. So we do have our volunteers, so Raleigh County Fire Department, Pot County's come over a couple times. Fort Riley comes over yearly just to do pump testing. They have we have the space to do that. Junction City's been over a couple times, but really no. In the fire service, it's really hard to do that, because you're a paid department. You're going to send people that are on duty out of town, 30 miles away to go train. It just doesn't happen very often. We have actually more use by K.S.A. Police Department and RCPD than we do any other people, to be honest. They both use it for our burn building and things like that. That's where they do a lot of their training. So I'd say on a monthly basis, there's either K-State or RCPD are utilizing our facility.
I was wondering, when you mentioned that there'd be the opportunity for some enhancements at the Amherst Avenue site, if there was an opportunity to expand that base of training, and if it would be attractive to some other locales.
Sure. What the two things that I see an opportunity to advance with is a hazmat area where we can actually bring props and have them on place. So we could have a tanker domes and rail domes and things like that, where we can actually get hands-on on rail equipment and over-the-road trucks and different piping systems and things like that, because that's something that most fire departments that do hazmat. So Topeka, Emporia, some of our partners that do the state teams, I think we could actually draw and have classes in our area. On the search and rescue side, having our own, if you will, mini rubble pile and confined space props and things of that nature, where they're set up all the time and they're safe, but you can get good training in, would bring in a different set of fire departments, Topeka, Salina, Dover, some other smaller departments in the region that would need those type of things. Right now, the only place that we can go for true search and rescue or collapse type training is either in Salina or if you get the opportunity, we can go on to Fort Riley at times, but it's just hard to get on to Fort Riley a lot of times for a lot of other departments. So having something on our site has the potential there. But definitely I see it being a very useful for RCPD and K-State continuing to have that partnership, especially having a road system in there where they can do some defensive driving and some different things that they don't really have an opportunity to do. I know they do it out at the lake currently. I think some of that stuff is done, but it's on public roadway and stuff. Where having a facility that you could actually control may be an opportunity for them as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
I would just reiterate, we've split these into two different leases. We have a 5-year window to vacate the training area, which would give us 5 years to master plan and come up with scenarios for investments there off Amherst. The other southern tract, southern half of this property where the headquarters fire station is, would be an extension for 41 years through 2075 in the proposed language. The memo went through the highlights here in bullets. But if there's anything really specific to the lease, we can hop into that. Otherwise, Mayor, Commissioners, any other questions we can address this evening?
I think it's good plan. That was something I was concerned about years ago, being sure we retain the building, and so it makes sense. And with the training area pretty much past its lifetime, and we can build a better one down there at Amherst, we've got the land. I think it's a good plan.
I think Wyatt and Scott were also looking for feedback on continuing that relationship with BBN and advancing some of these concepts to a point where, again, that construction manager at risk could be pursued, get us better cost estimates, get us better design elements so you know exactly what it is you'd make the decision on investing in the headquarters.
BBM did a design for us when we were talking about moving 911 there. So it would be, I think, good to, they've kind of understand what's going on there, and I think it's a good idea.
I was just going to say BBN designed the headquarters fire station, so they're the architect on record for that site. So it does, there is a relationship there and makes good sense.
Okay, is there any public comment on this particular topic? Okay, seeing none. And this is just a discussion item. I guess you've got all the information you need, Jason, so there's no vote required, so we'll move on unless you have.
Could I just ask a point of clarification on the interlocal agreement, section 2C, which is on the 4th page? At the top, it says the cost of the project would be up to $8 million, but I believe in the presentation, did it say 5?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we put a little bit of an escalating factor in there.
We don't get around to it.
Didn't it just says up to. We don't have to spend that amount of money, but it is an amount that we provided in negotiations to incorporate not only estimates that we had received to date, but again, a 5-year window to get those done.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is executive session. Now, how much time are we going to need, do you think?
Probably 45.
Okay. 45 minutes, so that would be 7:22. Yeah, 8 o'clock will work. Okay, so I'll just make the motion that we recess into executive session with the city attorney to obtain legal advice related to replacing the retiring city manager pursuant to K.S.A. 754319B2, the exception for consultation with legal counsel on matters that would be deemed privileged in an attorney-client relationship, and to resume the open meeting at 8 p.m. in the city commission.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. City clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Motta,
Yes.
Mayor Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Adamchuk,
yes.
Commissioner McCullough,
Yes.
Commissioner Appelt.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Brenda? Which one is it? Gotcha.
We're back to 8 o'clock, so we're out of executive session. We didn't take any action, so we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda tonight, which is the city manager briefing.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Commissioners. One of the things that we moved this to this meeting since we didn't have our work session last Tuesday, and we canceled that meeting, which would be normally when we would cover the items that I'm about to cover you with. But one of the things that I had emailed you about was what committees and boards that we have appointments to, you all would like to be a representative on representing the city commission, and you've all provided us some feedback. So since we're doing this in a special meeting, we could actually make those appointments tonight if you wanted to. And we've prepared some motions, and I thought I'd just run through this so that we tried to use and place commissioners where they asked to be, and a couple of them we adjusted a little bit. Some of them, these positions are based on your position. For example, the first one there, the community liaison group, is the mayor. So Mayor Butler would be appointed to that committee. The Visit Manhattan Steering Committee is typically the mayor pro tem. So Mayor pro tem Adamczyk would be appointed to that position. The Flint Hills Area Transportation Agency Board, currently, I believe, Commissioner Butler
I'm doing
is
that.
on that. However, he's picked up a couple of, being mayor, he gets some extra duty. And so I visited with him, and he was certainly open to no longer being that representative. Others were interested, and both Commissioner McCall and Commissioner Opelt were interested in that. So the proposal, and you're free to talk and trade, all that kind of stuff if you want to, but would look at appointing Commissioner McCullough to fill that primary term, and then we have, in this case, we have an alternate in case Karen wouldn't be able to attend, and then Peter could fit that alternate slot.
When does that meet?
So that would
They meet once a month.
Yeah.
It's on Wednesdays, I believe.
According on the first Wednesday of the month at 4.
First Wednesday of each month at 4.
It's up at the ATA building, up by the county shops. Yeah.
And then the other one is the Flint Hills Metropolitan Planning Organization Policy Board, and Peter asked to be considered for that, so we put him in that slot. And Commissioner Adamczyk also was willing to serve in that role, and so we've proposed her to be the alternate for that position. Commissioner Mott had indicated he'd be willing to be in any of the alternate positions. So the regional council position, Commissioner McCullough was one of the founding members of that group originally, and so she had asked to be on that as the primary appointee, and Commissioner Adamczyk also was interested in that, so we've suggested that she'd be the alternate. This is one where actually the regional council will allow any of the commissioners to attend and vote. So if neither Karen or Susan could attend, we would then just go on down the line to see who would want to step in. Staff can also attend, but they can't vote. So it's good to have a commissioner that's lined up and willing to do that. Of course, the mayor's the appointment to the library board as well as the chamber board of directors. So again, those are a couple of things, those three that the mayor picks up that they weren't doing before. And then Commissioner Mata volunteered to be on the audit committee. So that's kind of where we're at. If you want to talk about trading up on any of those, or any of those don't meet what you had hoped for, we could certainly talk about that. But if they do, if somebody wanted to make a motion to approve the slate as provided, that would be good too.
Well, I'll make the motion that we approve commissioner board appointments as outlined in the staff memo.
And I second.
So we have a motion and a second.
Mayor Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Adamchuk,
Yes.
Commissioner McCullough,
Yes?
Commissioner Opelt,
Yes.
Commissioner Motta.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. That's,
Could I just add, the senior center wants a commissioner, but they pick who they want, so it's not,
I'm doing that right now.
okay, well,
And,
yeah.
you know, it's not on that list. I was just gonna
Yeah. but I just-
continue unless,
No, I don't.
Somebody
no,
would
no,
like
no,
to
no,
take
no.
it over.
I just wanted to make sure that we knew that that was another job that was
Yeah.
out there. But it's their choice, not ours.
right.
correct.
A couple of those, actually, the MPO has a meeting tomorrow, and that was one of the reasons we wanted to bring this tonight. And I don't know, we'll certainly let Jared Tremblay know that Commissioner Opelt will be the designated commissioner. I don't know if you're available to attend that meeting tomorrow or not.
What time is that?
We'll look it up here for you, but
3, 4 o'clock?
3:30 at the library.
Okay, I think I can make that.
Okay, we'll make sure, we'll forward the packet to you.
Great, thank
All
you.
right, you betcha. And then I think the regional council meets this Friday, maybe? It's coming up, I know. Fourth Friday, so I think you got another week. Oh, yeah, it is our retreat, so that you'll have a conflict. Okay, well, I appreciate everybody working on that and being able to get those appointed this evening. Kind of along those lines, I know Mayor Butler, one of the jobs of the mayor gets a lot of invitations to welcome folks to the community and cut ribbons and all kinds of other things. And he certainly tries to do those as much as he can, but I know sometimes he's willing to share those invitations with others. So that would be something that if you're interested in doing that from time to time, a lot of times we just kind of go down the line. If he's going to be out of town or not available, then we would go to the mayor pro tem and so on and so forth. So just kind of an FYI as things come forward. We had done a radio show rotation where each month the commissioner would be on the radio show. That's something we wanted to talk about. It was something the radio station suggested last year, and it worked out okay. However, they said if you wanted to go back to the mayor, since we have a lot of new faces that aren't necessarily up on everything, that was okay. But I said, well, we'd talk about it tonight and see if you all were interested in the rotation, or if you want to go back to the mayor going out on, it's a couple times a month. It's the radio. It's at 9 o'clock on the Tuesday legislative meeting morning. So we kind of go over the agenda or any calls we get or other things that come up that they might want to quiz us about. So we don't need to know necessarily tonight, but if you want to think about whether or not that's something you're interested in or want to commit to, otherwise we'll kind of go back to the mayor's schedule. So we're done for this month. We did the second one this time, and then the next one would be in the first meeting in February. We also wanted to talk about calendars. And so one of the things that I wanted to, we have typically done is kind of lay out the schedule of meetings for the calendar year. And so we had previously sent out a list of options, option 1 and 2, for you to consider that would have legislative meeting dates for the rest of the year. And there were a couple options. The option really was considering, since we didn't have a work session last week, we have a 5th Tuesday in January on the 30th, where we could make up for some of that training and do some of that on the 30th, if that would be something you're interested in. I also just wanted to check with you on spring break. It is Tuesday on March 12th, so the week of March 11th through the 15th is both the school district and K-State spring break. That would typically be a work session, I believe, for us. Yes, so that's something that if you're, we try to work around schedules. If you know you're going to be gone, that would be one thing. If not, we could always, the thing that where this helps us to publish this is we've given notice to everybody that this is when we plan to meet. So if we meet outside of that, it's a special meeting that you have to have a call, and certainly we could cancel one of them if there's no activity or it's not necessary. So any feedback you have on that would be helpful.
Should we just email you directly, or do you want to hear our responses?
If you know some conflict dates that specifically don't work with these, that would be fine. If you could let us know now. We had thought that we could do this tonight also through a motion, but if we could carry this forward to February if we needed to.
I'll be out of the country for a work session on April 23rd.
4/23, okay.
I think we just should keep all these dates. It's easier to cancel something than it is to post, you have to do it way ahead and that kind of thing. And so I would just suggest we keep these dates, and then if it turns out that everybody's going skiing for spring break or something, we cancel it, yeah.
Right.
And what about the March meeting in DC? That doesn't, we usually go on Thursday and come back on Monday, or?
Yeah, that is March 9th and 10th. So actually, it's March 11th through the 13th. So it's that same week as spring break. That you're wanting to do. So if there was, that would be another reason to not have that work session if a couple of you were going to that.
Well, as I said, I think we just leave it this way and just announce that we're canceling that meeting, because.
Yeah, the main thing is we get closer to those dates and we go through the planning chart.
Sure.
Would be to know whether we need to work around a particular date or not. Okay?
And if we still got training to do, I would recommend we do that 5th.
On the 30th? Everybody available on the 30th?
Because otherwise, we're gonna end up with a long meeting, later on. It'd be easy just to
with that.
Just
Okay.
knock it out.
What's the last work session in December? I thought I saw one was like the 24th. Yeah. Oh, no meeting. Okay, great.
Yeah, we typically
Yeah.
don't do those, so. All right?
You want to meet on Christmas Eve?
No.
All right, well, we'll develop something for you for the next meeting on the 6th to adopt these dates officially.
And you're going to have to adopt the 5th meeting, January 30th before.
Oh, yeah, we do.
They
So,
can just do that by phone, or I can say.
The January 30th date is before February 6th, and the ordinance just says if you want to do a 5th Tuesday, that you just by affirmative vote add the 5th Tuesday, which we can do now.
okay,
But we can't do it on the 6th.
right,
It'll be
good
in the
point.
past.
So, would somebody like to make a motion to have a work session on the 30th of January?
Yeah, I'll move that we schedule a work session on the 30th of January.
I'll second.
Commissioner Adamczyk,
Yes.
Commissioner McCall,
Yes.
Commissioner Opelt,
Yes.
Commissioner Motta,
Yes.
Mayor Butler.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, thank you. Appreciate the housekeeping items. Couple other things then. Just wanted to make you aware that I have tentatively approved the dues for our membership to the Kansas League of Municipalities. That's $26,323. And also our Flint Hills Regional Council dues for $48,690. But I wanted to let you all make you aware of that. So if there was concerns about either of those, we haven't sent the check yet. I've just sent them through for processing. So
I don't have a concern, but I'm curious if we might be able to have some more information on like grants that we've received through them, just to have a little bit of information. I understand the importance of Flint Hills Regional Council and things like that, just so that we can have that kind of return on investment information for that.
sure. So there was an email we did forward, and obviously it was before I think y'all took your office. But it was from the interim director that had laid out some of the grants that we've participated in, but we can certainly update that information for you. They're in the process of hiring a new executive director, and so as soon as that person's hired, I would recommend that person come and give you a presentation, or it's one that we've done at some of the city-county meetings where they update everybody. Or even an intergovernmental, because there's a lot of folks that have pertinent information. But they have been pretty successful in some of the grants that we participated in, as well as both from the Environmental Protection Agency as well as economic development. And both the Manhattan Chamber and the the Pottawatomie County Economic Development Corporation have been contributing some matching funds for some of their economic development grants. But we can certainly provide some additional information.
I know recently, I guess Junction City pulled out of it. And of course, I've never really been that enthralled with the regional council. I know some of the commissioners like it quite a bit, like Linda Morris was always big on it. But my concern was, they raised our dues, because they base it on the thing. And I agree, Peter, I just don't see the return, on what we're getting. And that's just one of many. I mean, we spend a lot of money on dues to different organizations, and that's always been a concern, on lien management. Can we get rid of some of these? And if there's not a concrete return like this League of Cities, I get the information there, makes sense. But some of the others, I think last time I added it up, we're spending probably close to $250,000 a year on dues to various organizations. And maybe that money can be better spent somewhere else. Or, is it possible to tell the regional council, hey, we don't want to pay $48,000. We want our dues rolled back to what they were. And I'd be for pushing that angle.
Yeah, I just kind of was curious about, that type of information to make that kind of judgment. So I haven't seen any of that, so.
I think it's time to relook at that and see if it's still as important to the Army as they thought it was when they started it. And if so, then perhaps discussion with the Army in Junction City and Geary County should be forthcoming, because if it's a regional council where it's only Manhattan, it doesn't really make any sense. It has been, there's been a lot of money that's come in through it, but perhaps there's other way that you could bring those dollars in and have that kind of cooperation. So it probably is time to.
Yeah, I think that the regional council served its purpose during that BRAC thing, and that was important, but I also believe it's maybe, its usefulness from that perspective, especially with Junction City jumping out, and some of the smaller cities did too, I understand, so.
That could be.
So it's like, if we're carrying all the water, basically paying our dues to pay for their director, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
So I don't disagree necessarily that Obviously, we play the lion's share because they do it based on population for the dues. The dues are not a huge amount, and I don't disagree. Matter of fact, I had suggested that because they raised the rates to cover some of the debt that they had, they've since paid off that debt, and so I had suggested maybe they lower back to what it was, get rid of the surcharge to cover the debt payment. So I think that's a message that Karen, you could take to them as to whether or not we could do what Wynn said and
Yeah,
take us
no.
back to where we were.
I think it's time to reevaluate. It's been around for 20-some years, and, I agree with you. Is it financially positive for us? And, but I really wish that the Fort would kind of speak up on this, and maybe, Ron, when you meet with those people, you can say, is this valuable to you? Because we brought tens of thousands of dollars in, but yeah, if it's just Manhattan.
Yeah. All right, thanks for that feedback. Wanted to confirm that you all are available on Friday, the 26th, for the commission retreat. So we've tentatively set those times from 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. So is that going to work for everybody? We're going to go back up to the Sunset Zoo Education Center and have a good part of a day with you. All right, very good. We'll get that on the schedule as well. Let's see. Legislative update. I did forward you an email. You should. I don't know if all the commissioners have gotten emails from the League of Kansas Municipalities yet, but if you have, Friday afternoons, usually around 2 o'clock, is when they send out their weekly legislative, kind of end of the week. Here's what happened this week. They did their first one this last Friday. That's what I forwarded to you. It has some links on it that you can go to that sign up specifically for that legislative video. Sometimes they're live, and you can join them for a live presentation where Spencer Duncan talks about it along with some of the other staff. And then they lay out the calendar and some of the key issues that are coming up for local governments on the following week. And so it's a good way to keep up with things. We did submit a letter supporting Senate Bill 196 that I think you all received a copy of. Basically, that related to LAVTR resurrecting the transfers from that in support of it. So we'll see where that goes. It's my understanding the governor did recommend some funding for that LAVTR transfer in her budget proposal. So again, we'll see if that amounts to anything. The joint city-county meeting that would be this Thursday has been canceled. Neither one of the counties had any items, and we didn't have anything ready yet either. So this would be a meeting for if there is a topic that you all want us to schedule. The rule of thumb there is we typically don't demand one of the other entities, same way with intergovernmental, from talking about a subject. We ask them if they're willing to come talk about a subject, and same goes for us. If they'd like us to present something, they give us a heads up. If that's something that you're ready to present on. So those work out pretty well. It's just so the more lead time we have in making and asking them in advance, hey, can we get a report on appraisals, for example, has been one that we've had. But if we make that, hey, maybe you could do that next month instead of in 3 days type of thing. So that's just a common courtesy type of thing for asking them to report on something. Let's see, intergovernmental is scheduled for January 22nd. The K.S.A is hosting those this year, so those are going to be held at the Union. You should have got a bunch of invites from Grant. And apparently they're going to reimburse us for parking, so there's a way to do that so that we don't have to pay to park in the garage, which they now use the Park mobile app, just like our garage in Aggieville. So that's kind of a new feature for them. Good Morning Manhattan is also on this Thursday, and Secretary of State Scott Schwab is there, and I think Susan is planning on attending that.
I thought I saw that was canceled.
You think it's been canceled? I don't know. I hadn't heard that, but I hadn't seen anything on that. They didn't mention it at the Chamber Board meeting today. They didn't. I mean, as far as
As far as
cancellation.
canceling.
The Chamber Regional Leaders Retreat is this Friday, at the Conference Center, and that's from 8 to 5, so that's something that's been a multiple-day event, and so it is just a one-day event, and I think everybody except Peter is planning to attend that right now. You had a conflict.
Could you get us
but-
an outline of what's when?
Yeah, I can, I haven't received the agenda yet, but I will, so absolutely. I'll send the agenda to you. Ask Jason for it, because they mentioned it in the board meeting today, but ex officios don't get copies of the agenda packets.
There is something out there, because
Is it on their website?
Yeah.
it's out.
Okay, we'll find it and get it to you. Local Government Day for the league is the 24th, next Wednesday. So I think both Susan and Peter may be going to go. I think Jared's going to visit with you about that as well. So more information there. And then Karen mentioned the National League of Cities Conference. It is March 11th through the 13th. That Congressional Cities Conference, when we'll get some additional information out to you on that one. It's one where we really focus on national legislative meetings and issues and meet with our congressmen if there is particular items there. So if there's interest in that, there's up through February 19th for the early bird rate on that particular issue. One of the things I wanted to visit about, and I think we'll just go to the planning chart because the item is related to being on the planning chart, and that's one of the things we do at the briefing is kind of go over the next two legislative meetings, and then the work session schedule is kind of on the back, so you should have a copy of that laying there. And then, again, this is not set in stone. These could, based on where they are, we're anticipating these are going to be on these meetings based on where we are at with our planning efforts, but that could change tomorrow due to any number of factors. But we've got two general agenda items planned for February 6th. One is an ordinance on downtown parking garage to kind of bring it in line with the Aggieville parking garage and the requirements that we have there, putting some of those aspects in place for the various rules regulating it. There's three there. There are 2A, 2B, and 2C, and these are all related to Garden Grove. National Church Residences. So we have an agreement with them currently for being willing to get a 90-10 grant match from FEMA to purchase their property. So a flood buyout program. We need to amend that agreement. They've agreed to pay for that match and some other provisions regarding that project. We have been offered the grant. There's some provisions in the grant we've been negotiating with them about. And so that's kind of one of the things that's taken a while to get to. One of them is a selection of a relocation specialist, which we feel like we're obligated to do. They have some obligations to do that as well. But obviously we're dealing with low-income elderly residents that need some special assistance. And so I think it's important for us to really look at those particular issues as part of that. So this is one that's kind of floated on the schedule a lot because we haven't necessarily been on the same page with some of our issue, but we're getting closer, but I won't promise you that won't move again, depending on where we're at. We also have a public hearing scheduled for our special assessments. We issue special assessments a couple times a year, and this is where the public hearing is for those benefiting properties that are going to be assessed. They get a notice about here's how much you're going to owe over the next 20 years for the improvements that were done. A lot of them are streets and other infrastructure, usually associated with new lots and new subdivisions. And so this is where they hear that and they have an opportunity to come express either, yeah, I think this is fine, or no, I've got some issues here with this. So they're usually pretty straightforward. And in this particular case, I think it's about a $7 million issue, and I think about 5.5 of that is bit to the benefiting properties, and about 1.6 is to the city at large. The city at large one is that has the Stonehaven development as part of that, and a big chunk of that with the park and the street. The city's parkland is adjacent to one of the streets, so some of those improvements are part of that assessment. There's a lot of stormwater components in that as well that we have a bigger share in. On the consent agenda, we've got some first readings of some of our advisory board reorganizations. Again, that's something we tackled a lot last year, and all the boards have made recommendations for amending the ordinances that establish and speak to what their purpose is. We also have the Frederick Douglass Rec Complex Advisory Board, which is a rename officially as part of this ordinance, right? Or did we already do that? We already did that?
No, we did that a couple of years ago.
All right. And we have second reading of the Manco item we had tonight. We have a bid award for the landscaping and the maintenance of that landscaping for the new roundabout at Grandmere Parkway and Kimball. So few of the other roundabouts, namely Kimball and Scenic and Anderson, that intersection, we contracted with Blueville as part of the benefit district that helped pay for that to do the original landscaping, and then they maintain it as part of that. And of course, they have the robotic mower that everybody's fascinated with, and it does a pretty good job. And I think they've put one on the Amherst and Miller Parkway one as well. So we contracted with them to do that as well in that. So this is kind of following that process. We had two bidders for this, and I think we are recommending Blueville for that one. Had the low bid as well. We've got some final plats. This is the Noor Edition replat. So this is the Islamic Center where they rezoned the property to eliminate the apartment units, and that's what the plat will reflect based on the rezoning.
Didn't they do that a long time ago?
They did a long time ago. Well, they did. They were going to build the apartments, and now they're not going to build the apartments. So they rezoned it to take that out just last year. So they have to replat to reflect that. We've got a selection committee recommendation to negotiate on the wastewater treatment plant, solid treatment upgrade and expansion project. So a recommendation from that committee. I think Commissioner Butler might have been on that one.
On that one, yep.
And then the next two are ones that I wanted to visit a little bit more about. We have an on-call services. So this is our some of our engineering on-call services. We've done this, I think, for 4 years. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's 4 years. We started out with 2, but this is to help supplement staff. And so we have an engineering on-call for 4 primary services that we've done for 4 years. One's stormwater, water, wastewater, and transportation. So basically what this does is it selects 4 firms in each of those categories to be on a rotation basis to help us. So if they are next on the list, they can either choose to enter into a contract as to help us with a design or something on a particular infrastructure project. If they're not available, then they go to the bottom and we go to the next firm. So what we're wanting, obviously, we've lost some engineering staff and we have some challenges. And so one of the things that we're doing is expanding that engineering on call for some of the more non-traditional engineering. We don't necessarily need licensed engineers for these, but so we're submitting, we have solicited proposals for firms that are interested in inspection services, landscape architect services, mechanical electrical services, project management, property acquisition, as well as surveying. So those are the 6. And so the question would be, in the past, we've had a commissioner that might want to sit on these originally. Now, the 4 that we're going to have on the agenda for award in the traditional ones was done by a staff committee to just review those because they've kind of been in place and in that routine. And so the question would, are you okay with staff doing the same thing for the expanded components, or would you like to have commissioners be involved in that process to get to 4? And some of these there's not going to be 4 because there's probably not that much interest, but in some of them there probably will be more than 4. So just looking for some feedback if that's something you want to be involved with. A lot of times, depending on the project, and the scope of the project and the size of the project, we ask if the commissioners would like to be part of that selection committee to interview the firms or review the proposals. And sometimes there's decisions made not to even proceed with interviews, where they just make a recommendation based on the submittals. Other times there's a short list, and maybe you interview half of the folks that submitted, and then ultimately brings a recommendation back to the commission for their participation. So
Can you review those 6 categories again?
the 6 categories are for inspection services, landscape architect services, mechanical electrical services, project management, property acquisition, and surveying.
Yeah, see, I don't have a problem with the staff going ahead and just selecting them, and the reason I say that is a lot of this is pretty technical stuff, and they know the firms. They've got a history of working with them, and they know certain ones they don't want to work with. And so they have a better handle on it than I do, because I'm not close enough to the issue, so I don't see a problem with that.
I would agree, although I think there are a number of new companies in Manhattan, so I think it's really important that we do this in a very above board and
Sure.
consider the, new plumbing companies and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and our process is it's an open solicitation, anybody can apply, and then they're evaluated based on those factors.
Yeah, I agree. Leave it to staff to take.
All right? So that was the reason there were 2 of them. One of those would, if you wanted to be involved, then we would officially appoint the selection committees and ask for volunteers, and you probably would have to, somebody would have to go twice, because there's 6 versus 5. Thank you, and those will come back to you. So, if somebody doesn't feel good about they didn't get a fair shot, they can certainly come to the commission meeting and talk about that. Before we award the contract. We're just doing the interviews and making recommendations to you all to ultimately have the contracts. All right, thank you. On the 20th then, right now we just have 1 general agenda item scheduled. There could be more, but we've been working with Realty Group, help me out there, Jason. With Lee Mill Village Development. The city owns some lots there, and we've worked with the Community Housing Partnership to do some of the senior housing there, but there's still some leftover lots that we reclaimed from the original developer built a few townhomes and then walked away from the rest of it. So it's been an arduous process, and so we went out for proposals for a firm that would work with us to try and market the rest of the sites. And I think that's kind of where we're at, to come up with you with some recommendations?
We actually have a developer, so
Okay.
we've went through probably 5 different RFPs for Lee Mill Village. We did do what Ron described once, but this time we went and looked for developers, and Tyler Hollerman with Heritage Builders responded. They're researching some options. The one it's Frontier, isn't it? Yeah, not Heritage, sorry. They went through some options. They're working with SMH. We'll bring back those options with different infrastructure costs associated with them. But we're optimistic. They're optimistic. They were the only ones that responded. So we feel like we're towards the end of this development. We've got those 5, I think, lots that extend to the north on top, and then that cul-de-sac with the 3 or 4 lots, depending on how you want to look at it. Left of the entire development that we inherited.
Jason, is that going to be similar housing to what's there now? And is it going to be earmarked for older residents?
So that was with the Manhattan Area Housing Partnership and Jill Jacoby. This is not affiliated with them. Tyler I think he has more workforce type of housing in his mind. We haven't seen rents. We haven't seen, what these things would sell for. I think the majority of them are a townhome type of concept, but we'll need to talk with him. I think some of it could be about what tools is he going to leverage, not only from us, but potentially the state on what type of product. But right now, the main focus is infrastructure necessary to actually get to a point where they can build these. There's some challenges out there at this site, and again, these are the last lots for a reason. So we do have some challenges, but he's really taken the time and the effort to look at some options. We want to present those to you all and see if you're interested in moving forward.
Some of those lots line up more with the townhomes than they do the senior homes. Others are a separate cul-de-sac that not really lining up with either one. So I think there's some options.
Thanks.
You bet. There's also several plats and second readings of ordinances, so nothing popping out there. On the backside are work sessions. So coming up on the next week, we're looking forward to having a discussion with you about our housing incentives policy as well as our economic development policies as we move forward. And then obviously we're going to have a meeting on the 30th where we'll look to continue some of our training that we had originally scheduled for the 9th and maybe some other issues that we might be ready to discuss depending on your discussion earlier tonight. On the February 13th, we'll have an update on that wastewater treatment plant project, and then also an update on the Beyond Tomorrow Downtown Plan, which is virtually just about finished, and so that's getting close to its final recommendations and prior to adoption. So they want to make sure they cover that with you. That's something that really was been focused on most of last year. On the 27th then is the East Manhattan Gateway Plan, and that's something that clearly is going to be ongoing this year and into next year. We're also looking at having some discussion on that at your retreat as well. The 12th then is the Seco Park improvements update relative to the quality of life bond issue items with the rec centers and some of the challenges we have there, where we had a project that was approved with some budget totals based on something that was approved about 8 years ago, and we've had a little bit of inflation since then. So we just need to share some of our challenges that we may face with that project and have some discussion with you on some of that concurrence. The other item then is we've had a traffic master plan that's been done, and so this is really more looking at just how traffic moves through town, but a lot of our signalized intersections and what improvements we should be making in that regard. And then on March 26th, update on our overall street maintenance and street improvement plan. So that kind of relates to that. And then there had been a question about how does a commissioner get an item on an agenda? And so typically that's what we've used this briefing session for. So if a commissioner has an item they want to either have a work session about or is ready, they think there's an item for action, they raise it here and see if there's concurrence from the commission to put that on an agenda, and for staff to, if it involves staff time to research it, that we got time to do that. In this case, I think it was reiterated at our legislative luncheon, Representative Dodson had talked about the Medicare expansion and how some of the communities were passing resolutions encouraging the legislature to adopt that. So I know Commissioner Adamczyk had talked about that, was interested in it.
Yes.
And I don't have a problem. We should go ahead and put that on there. It's not going to do any harm.
Me either.
There are, just for your own information, I don't know if you've been following this, but I think Russell, Hayes, possibly Emporia, have already passed resolutions. I was gratified to see that Senator Dodson was asking for that support from us. And so, to be responsive to our legislators, I'd like to propose that our Office of Legal Counsel do some research on what the language looks like in those other resolutions and bring it forward to us for consideration.
Yeah, because I think we need to know what it is we're saying we want them to do.
Right.
I mean, is there one that's there? Is it a general concept? I mean, because the devil's in the details on a lot of the bills. There was just one for some property tax with seniors that Dotson, we've got the county commission coming out against it. The bill really isn't written too well. He says there's an amendment to fix it, but the county commission is saying, well, I don't have a copy of this amendment that you want to change our testimony for. So it gets, I mean, you got to know what it is you're saying you support.
Sure. Well, clearly it looks like there's support to do something. So we'll do some research and get a hold of some of those ones that have been done and put a draft out to you before we schedule it.
And I think it would be good to check with Pawnee and have them give you the monetary impact that this would have for them in serving more people in the public, because Robin's talked about that several times, and I think she's got the numbers. I mean, perhaps we don't want to put that in but just for the commission to understand.
All right, very good. That's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, then we wanted,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to say, I haven't seen figures for Manhattan specifically, but Alliance for a Healthy Kansas has assembled some figures for Riley County overall. And it estimates how many Riley County uninsured residents would become eligible, how many new jobs would be created in Riley County with expansion, and new annual health care spending in Riley County, which is exceeds $22 million.
Yeah, and I don't know if the league has taken a position on this specifically, but clearly, I know I've talked to Bob Koppel, and obviously I know a lot of smaller community hospitals have really been impacted negatively, and so I'm sure he's indicated that it would help them as well, and probably Stormont as well.
The state chamber came out against it, but has the local chamber had a stance?
I don't know, but we can check with
Because
them.
they haven't agreed with the state.
I think they had it in their platform to support Medicaid expansion.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
okay, then I think we had one other thing, the transition plan with your retirement, that we came to the conclusion that we would want to have a professional firm, and we like the idea of SGR because the city's got experience with them. And I think, that contract would be probably under $50,000, so what we'd like you to do is pursue that.
Explore
So
that.
that we can, and then the only hangup is, we want to be sure that, we get the right lead person as part of that. And so that's where we are on that process, and that'll speed things up appreciably.
Absolutely. Thank you. We'll get going on that.
Okay, any other comments? The only other thing I wanted to mention was, you know, when you get appointed as mayor, you get to make recommendations for boards, and what I'd like to do, I think all of you can see the ones that are open, and you can also see on that website who's applied, and what I like to do at the coordination meeting is just say, okay, here's the ones that I want to recommend, and if anybody has an issue with that, just let me know and we'll resolve it, rather than have a fight in a legislative meeting. That's just, we had that happen in the past, and I would just like to avoid that. And if you have someone that you really feel strongly that should be put on there, just, you know, send me a note. And, you know, because I don't have any preconceived notions. What I like to do is talk to the people, and we're still in the process of updating the application. We went through some work last year where it's more specific, because a lot of people apply and they just say, you know, I want to be on a board. Well, you know, there's a lot more details there, and I think it's still going to be a couple of weeks before that gets finalized.
Yeah, we're still trying to
Yep.
work on that in between other.
Yeah, because we wanted it to be more specific. If somebody applies for the historic board, it can't just be, well, I want to be on it. What, you know, what's your logic here, so that we get some more people in there? So I think there's a few openings, you know, out there right now that I got to come up with a list of people, and I'll have that, you know, for the next coordination meeting.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask another question?
Sure.
Procedurally? So we've been getting emails from constituents about several different topics. I was happy to see that there was a response sent to the Beamans about their parking. What is beyond becoming aware of these issues, how are we meant to respond to them? Do we call you up and say, these are my thoughts? Do we leave it to staff to take a first stab at it?
So, great question. And sometimes those emails only go to commissioners, and we don't monitor your email. And so we don't have a flag that flips up that said all the commissioners got this. We find that out from you all when you forward it to us. So I would just encourage you, especially ones that are to all of you, if there's if there's something that's very obvious that you could answer, that's fine. If you'd like staff assistance in responding, or staff to respond, just forward it us and ask us for that. And what we try to do then is respond back and blind copy everybody, so that you're aware that, okay, yeah, we've received this. And sometimes staff gets copied on stuff and sometimes we don't. And sometimes you'll get individual emails and other commissioners don't, but it's applicable to them. So, yeah, we're certainly, we want you to give as accurate of an answer as you can. So we're here to help you with that. So just probably the best thing to do if you want some assistance with that answer is forward it to our office.
Okay.
Yes, what I generally do is I try to reply to everybody. I think I've done a pretty good job over the past 10 years of answering all the emails, but on occasion I know the answer, and I'll just reply, and I don't let the staff know. In most cases, I'll send it, like I think just last week I got one on parking, and Jason sent me back some information, and I used that to craft the response. And the Mercury sent me one, you know, which was a I wonder question about, you know, how do we handle people that are, you know, need a warming station? And Ron sent me a good press release, and I just forwarded that to Ned, that explained what the county and everybody does, because it just wasn't on the top of my head.
Sure.
But I just want to be sure I don't, you know, cause misinformation. And then again, I haven't been, you know, because of the COMA rules, I don't copy furnish the other commissioners. So I like what the staff does when you're aware of it, and then you copy furnish all of us, like on that business with a parking pass there. I think everybody was aware of it. And he sent me a follow-up email. He was quite pleased. I didn't share that with anybody, but he sent me an email saying, boy, that's outstanding that you guys got me an answer this fast. And he was quite happy with, I guess Adrian called him up and and said, here's what you do, and he said, boy, very impressive, so, good job on everybody's part on that one.
I think you can also just say, thank you for your input, and I forwarded this to administration to deal with it. Just so that they don't feel like they sent something out and nobody, without making any kind of comments on tattoos or anything.
That's for sure.
I was wondering if everyone received that one in particular. Sorry, one other topic to consider for the future is, I've had several of us, I think, have had calls from a constituent with some concerns about K.S.A. relocating some of its feedlots along Manhattan Avenue, and concern that more manure is going to be closer to the roadway, some other issues associated with that. So I wanted to know if the city was aware of any of that process that K-S is going through, and how do we follow up with that?
So we typically meet with some of the university administration once a month. Usually, it's at the second Monday, I think, of the month, and I wasn't able to participate in the last one, and I don't know if it was brought up or not. No. But that would be where we would. I'm not personally aware of the proposal. I think Commissioner Opelt forwarded that one to me, and I told him that I would find out at that meeting, and then I wasn't able to attend it, so I didn't bring it up. We have the contacts, and so it's, the current feedlot is well north of Marlat, so it isn't part of the city limits. It would be potentially a county item. I would say that generally speaking, and Katie can help me here, but it's difficult, even with our own laws, for one government entity to tell another government entity that they can't do something, even if they were within the city. And so, not sure totally what's going on, but certainly willing to ask some questions and try to get more information about what is going on.
Thank you.
Yep.
Back to your earlier question, just for reference, that email forum that you get online, in the subject and in the top of it, it's going to say to all city commissioners.
Oh, okay.
And then it'll say your name if it's just to you. So you'll kind of know by that way if it's to all commissioners or if it's just to you. Both options are on the website.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other items to coordinate? If not, then we can take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, we've got a motion to adjourn the January 16th, 2024 City Commission meeting. I'll second.
Commissioner McCall,
Yes.
Commissioner Opelt,
Yes.
Commissioner Motta,
Yes.
Mayor Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Adamczyk.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you.